Our next guest on Offside is Brady Poppinga, current NFL linebacker, 6 seasons with the Green Bay Packers, last season with the St. Louis Rams. Recently, he came out and criticized the New Orleans Saints bounty program. Brady, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here with you, man.
We certainly appreciate you joining us, Brady. Recently, you described the Saints bounty program as, quote, degrading, animalistic, and repulsive. Why did you make those statements?
Well, at the end of the day, it really just comes down to what the NFL stands for. You know, and when you put that shield on your helmet or you wear that shield on your shirt, which is the NFL symbol, you know, you're committing to adhere to a higher standard of competing, in my opinion. Because the NFL, it's a product that the NFL sells to its fans, and the product that the fans embrace and make it one of the greatest games in all of North America, is that it's a game it's highly competitive, it is physical, but at the end of the day, there is mutual respect amongst the opponents, there's mutual respect amongst the teams, there's respect for the guys that have come before us, there's respect for obviously the present players, and the respect for where the game's going into the future. And I just feel when these kind of bounty systems that are in place, when they're implemented, they compromise that respect and that integrity for the game. And when the public starts to think that, you know what, these guys who are out there playing football just hitting their heads up against each other, a bunch of dummies, idiots, you know, they're just, you know, a bunch of basically barbarians, I think that just, it does not take into full light the reality of the NFL and the reality of its players. Because I don't look at myself as some meathead, as a lot of people do describe us. I look at myself as somebody who's intelligent, that goes out and plays a game, that works hours upon hours over the fundamentals, the intricacies, the technical parts of the games, and I'm not a meathead. And I know that 95% of the NFL is not consistent of meatheads either. You know, they're a bunch of very intelligent guys that love to play a physical game, and like I said, 95% of the guys, they play it the right way. They play it physical, they play it fast, they play it fanatically, and they do it within the confines of the rules. And I just feel like the bounty system doesn't really accurately reflect the realities and the overall general culture of the NFL football. And it compromises the integrity of the game.
Well, I think it's putting it lightly that you're not a meathead. You're the recipient of the Walter Payton Award for 2007, which honors your contributions both from a humanitarian standpoint and performance on the field. Let me ask you this, Brady. In your experience, how common are these types of bounties on teams?
I think they're very rare in terms of when you look at the bounty that's designed to intentionally inflict serious injury, and I'm not talking pain, I'm talking injury on your opponent. This is the only time I've ever heard of it. Now, knowing some guys, seeing how some guys play the game, could it be possible? Could you speculate that there were other forms of this? Yeah, but there's nothing that's come out with concrete facts, such as this particular case, is this bounty gate down in New Orleans with Greg Williams. And let me make it clear to everybody, I am no way lashing out at Greg Williams personally. This has nothing to do with him as a coach, as a person. This has everything to do with the system that he implemented. And I understand his intentions were to try to motivate his team and to get his guys to play really hard, physical, play violently as the game, you know, but like I said before, it crossed the boundaries. And at the end of the day, like I said before, it compromised the integrity of the game.
Well, you know, Brady, you raise a good point. You know, you said that it crossed the line. So for the fan, we see football as an inherently violent sport. Where is that line?
The line comes down to, and this is, you know, something where I can relate to this, is it comes down to how you view your opponent. Do you view your opponent with respect, to dignity, or do you not? And there was a time in my life when I did not view my opponents with respect and dignity, and I also tried to play in a way that was, I guess, without any kind of regard for their physical well-being, and I drew in cheap shots and tried to hurt guys, and there was a lot of conflict. And the competitive experiences that I were involved in were not the kind of experiences that really brought my best self out. They were experiences that, to be honest, it brought the devil out inside of me, and it came to a point where I realized, like, if I'm going to keep competing this way, then I'm going to pretty much either become a lunatic and in jail, or I got to change my perspective and find a way to compete to where I can come out of these experiences enriched and benefiting either way, whether I win or I lose. And so the bottom line when it comes down to this, what I learned was that it was really a perspective issue, and that's the whole thing I felt like with Greg Williams. He lost perspective, and when he implemented the system compromised what the true integrity of the game was and the true spirit of competition. And at the end of the day, to be honest, that's what, this whole experience that I went through personally motivated me to write a book. And the book is called The True Spirit of Competition, because I feel like as a society there are times when we fall into that trap to where we do cross that line and we lose respect for our opponent and ultimately then compromise the true spirit of competition, and that experience, that competitive experience, instead of it being something that's beneficial to us and enriches our lives and brings out our best, it becomes detrimental to us. And so the ultimate line, boom, pretty dark, pretty clear, is how you view your opponent. And when you respect your opponent, you can still go out. And that's one thing I think a lot of people that don't play football realize is you can go out and you can blast somebody in the face as hard as you can with a great amount of respect. Because you know what? At the end of the day, when you're out on that field, you're expecting the same from your opponent. Because at the end of the day, for me, when I'm on that field, I'm looking to be pushed to my very best. And the only way I can do that is going out against an opponent that's looking to bring it to me and bring his very best to the competitive situation. And so there is a way to go out, play violently, physically, and play of how the game of the football is meant to be played, but at the same time respecting your opponent.
We're here with Brady Poppinga, NFL linebacker and recipient of the Walter Payton Man of the Year Award. So, Brady, you're talking about initially how you grew up in football, you went out to hurt opponents. So is that just part of how football players are conditioned, and you have to take a step back as you mature and get older and gain wisdom and adjust your game?
I don't know if it's how players. I don't know if I could just swipe a broad brush of players, but I think it has to do purely with perspective. And you're right. It takes time to sort of mature, and I think there's, like I said, I'd say 95% of the guys that I played with in this league have that perspective, and they understand the respect, the mutual respect that is shared on the football field. And so I think it purely comes down to a perspective of how you treat playing football. And I don't think it's inherent in guys. I think it's just more of, like I said, perspective. And as you do grow older and mature, you gain that perspective, and especially if you're very involved in competitive situations, and if it's your profession and you're in those kind of situations, especially the intense ones on a day-in, day-out basis, I think you're going to gradually gain that perspective, because if not, like I said before, your track is going to lead you to a place that you don't want to be. Because what happens is if you lose perspective, a competition becomes more than a competition, in my opinion. It becomes almost like a life-and-death situation. And as we all know, football or sports in general, even competitive situations in general, are not life and death. Winning and losing obviously is what your ultimate goal. But when your perspective is in the right place and you respect your opponent, whether you win or lose, everybody can benefit from that competitive experience, the winner and the loser. But when you lose perspective, almost everybody is hurt because of the experience.
Is it fair to say, Brady, that if a player doesn't have that perspective when they start their career, given their age and lack of experience, it's incumbent on the coach or the coordinators to make sure that they operate in a way that at least demonstrates that they at least may have that perspective, to impose that type of perspective on players almost?
I mean, idealistically, you would think so, because the coaches in general are more seasoned, more experienced, have been through a number of competitions, so you would ideally think that that's the case. But like anything, everybody's rate at which you grow and you learn and you gain perspective is different. And so, but I say overall that is the case. I think most coaches have a very strong, a very sound perspective and of how to compete. Hence the reason why most of the time in practice, what I've been involved in with the head coaches that I've had, if there's fights that have broken out or if there's little bickering going on amongst teammates, the coaches are immediately stepping in and immediately addressing the situation and making it to where the team benefits because of it, comes closer because of it, because they understand that that perspective needs to be sort of, reminded and taught to the players. And so I think most coaches have that, but I don't think all coaches do, because it's, again, not everybody lives in a vacuum, and everybody progresses and gains perspective on different things at different times. But I think, for the most part, I think the